This is BNG TV.
Well, let's get down to business with these picks. We had to add in a third game this week with Michigan State having the bye week. Let's start there. Notre Dame and Utah. Obviously, all kinds of problems down in South Bend, and a Utah team that's bound to be a little bit cheesed off about the beating they took at the hands of TCU.
Yeah, and you know what? I guess you find out what Utah is really made of this particular week. Notre Dame's, I don't think that they're a terrible football team, but they're not a real good football team either. They've had their struggles in different facets. I think a lot of that has to do with a difference in mentality, difference in coaches, and players being asked to do some things that they're not as familiar with. You have those growing pains in the first year. Certainly, as a friend and being biased, I want the best for Notre Dame. I want Notre Dame to win. But they got to figure out a way to get that done. And, I lean towards Utah in a close one in this particular football game just because Utah's, been on the winning edge most of the season. And Notre Dame's got to figure out that way to get over the hump. I do truly believe Brian Kelly's going to get them over the hump. It's just so many unfortunate things this particular season, notwithstanding, the terrible accident that happened a few weeks ago. And, I don't know how you kind of battle through those things and get past some of that stuff. It certainly is telling, as we talked about a few minutes ago, just looking at Brian and you're, this point in the season, you're tired anyways, but to have, I'm sure, the agony and the pain of that particular loss, I just can't even imagine what is going through that entire program. And because of that mental state, I just think that, Utah comes in to rebound. Notre Dame's trying to, find its wheels in amongst a lot of things that are going on. So I see Utah in a close one.
Too many injuries for Notre Dame. I know it's senior day. They like to put everything behind them. They lost to Tulsa at home. I mean, that exposed them. Utah's coming off a stinging loss at home to TCU. They're going to want a vengeance, even though they're the road team coming in. But you got Tommy Rees starting as a freshman quarterback. No Rudolph. I mean, the injuries just keep mounting up for this team. I see Utah winning this one 31-20.
Joseph.
I'm taking Utah. Like he said, Notre Dame is way too beat up. Christ is out, and Utah's coming off a shellacking. They're going to be very upset. I take Utah.
Ray Bentley, the only person on our panel that is siding with Notre Dame because I'm taking Utah. I think TCU did them no favors. Utah had easily the coolest uniforms of the week last week with those Army fatigue style trimmed out uniforms, and they just got a beat down from the Horned Frogs. So, yeah, they come into Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's a mess right now.
And I would say this: I wouldn't be shocked. Don't be shocked by a victory by Notre Dame.
I would be stunned.
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. I think this could be, depending on how this game turns out, a very good indication on why people make the argument about the Utahs, the Boise States, and the TCUs of the world. TCU, I think, is a little bit different this particular year, but this will be interesting to see what Utah does or does not do with Notre Dame, who has at least some talent and plays, a decent brand of football compared to what I think they see on a weekly basis. So even beat up and Tommy Rees, who definitely has a decent arm, I just don't see Utah blowing them out.
This is Ty's Take, brought to you by the Twisted Rooster. We're joined in studio by NFL veteran Ty Halleck, getting our picks for the weekend. Moving on to the second college game, Michigan and Purdue. Michigan's now a 12.5-point favorite on the road to beat the Boilermakers.
Well, I mean, have you seen Purdue play lately? I mean,
I've seen Michigan's defense.
Yeah, I've seen their defense too, but, Purdue's obviously has some injuries themselves. They haven't played particularly well. I'm not anointing Michigan by any means, and quite frankly, my take last week, I know it's a big win for Rich Rodriguez and his staff, and it's a big win for those kids, but, man, when you look at how those guys reacted to beating an Illinois team 67-65 at home, it blows my mind that that's something that's, celebratory at Michigan. I mean, there are games when coaches walk, like Maryland the other night, if you watch the basketball game, not very happy coach winning a close one against a team that they shouldn't have been that close with. And I think in terms of Michigan and, again, their historical setup, you still are 5-16 in the last few years. You got a winnable game against Purdue, and you should do it, whether they're favored by 13. I get that because of what Denard Robinson can do and Purdue's lack of defense. But, the next 3 weeks are really going to tell more about the Michigan story than, quite frankly, absolute nut job victory against Illinois, 67-65 on a team with no defense and quite frankly, an offense that you wonder against an Illinois defense that's actually pretty good. Why aren't they doing that output all the time?
Well, they are. It's just getting buried in that defense. I mean, they put up 500 yards against Iowa. They had 394 yards at halftime against Illinois that was giving up only 304 a game. They're putting up the yards. They're just when you're down 56, it's kind of hard to come back. They've put up yards on everybody, save for maybe the Spartans where they really kind of stumbled. But they just that defense is
playing
so
behind like you said,
bad.
playing behind like you said, there's you got to filter out some of that yardage for it. But nonetheless, you're right. I mean, this still isn't a good Michigan football team, and just because they're rated, or expected to win by 13 against Purdue, yippee-ki-yay, it doesn't really mean a whole heck of a lot because Purdue's not that good.
Well, there's the problem. Purdue is not going to be ahead of Michigan. Michigan is going to get on them early, and they are going to cover the spread. They're going to win on the road 35-20 over Purdue.
Joseph.
Michigan's going to win this game. I don't think they're going to cover the 12.5 because Martin might not play. Mouton might be out, which is our two best defenders, which is not saying much. But
if Michigan wants to make anything out of this season, they've got to win this, and I think Brett's right. I think they cover. I just haven't seen anything out of Purdue that leads me to believe that they can even hang around once that offense does what it's done to everybody. I don't think they can hang around or execute enough on their own offensive end to hang out. So
yeah, 35-21. I think it's a convincing win, but if they lose this game, let me tell you something. The wheels on the bus fell right off.
Yeah, big time. This is Ty's Take, brought to you by the Twisted Rooster. Getting to our last game here. We got about a minute left. And Lions-Bills. 2.5-point line on this one, giving it to the home team, which really isn't a home. That's a pick-em game at that point. 0-8 Bills, 2-6 Lions. No Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, you know what? That doesn't bother me as much so long as Sean Hill's brace has got some kind of bionic. Hopefully he sees like Lee Majors over the week. not that he's throwing with his left hand.
See, I was waiting for you being a smarty to come out and say put Drew in there.
Nah, you know what? I think Drew is a good utility quarterback. I think he's somebody you can bring in. I don't think he's a starter if you got Sean Hill. Arm or no arm. I mean, let's just be very candid and direct. I think Drew has a position in the National Football League. I think he's a good guy. If you got Sean Hill and he can start, it's the way it is. And I think with Sean Hill, the Lions can win this football game. Certainly they can lose it, but if Jim Schwartz wants everybody to buy in to him ultimately, where he still takes his shots now, where there's games that are lost, few questionable calls, I think Jim Schwartz is doing a ton of things right. He's not getting everything done right, but I don't think any coach does. I don't think Bill Parcells ever did. I know for a fact Tom Coughlin doesn't. He certainly works hard at it. But Jim Schwartz, in order to get them over the hump, they need to win some ball games that they should win, and they need to start to build on what I think they got themselves to, which is they know and understand that they can compete and can win ball games. Now you just got to start getting some of these W's to follow. I see it this weekend. It may be a close one, but I see the Lions winning 28-24.
Here's the benefit of the loss to the Jets. The Lions will come with the right mindset. They want to end this road losing streak. The defensive line will help out the offense with a shortened field, creating turnovers. They win it. Do the Lions 24-13.
Dave Rayner wins this with a last-second field goal.
On the banks of the Red Sea.
31-28. Lions win it.
Oh, for a minute there, I thought you were picking Buffalo, and then I realized Dave Rayner plays for the Lions. Yeah. Or at least he does this week. I'm like, wow, our first Buffalo pick. How about that? No, Lions win this one, walk it away. I really think that they're just more talented than Buffalo. A little bit like the Michigan-Purdue matchup. You got a better team, record be damned. They're a better team, and they got really close against a Super Bowl contender last week, so they know how close they are to being a legitimate team, and Buffalo is bad and stands the best chance in a long time of tying them for 0-16. So, go Bills.
We're done here.
Bakita and Gray, morning 6 to 9.